Thank you for joining us this morning for the AMA Guest Speaker Series. This time I'd like to introduce Chris Wolf, the RC Geek.
Welcome to the AMA Expo. As mentioned, I am Chris Wolf. I'm an aerospace engineer from San Diego and also the 2016 U.S. Scale Masters National Champion. Thank you. You guys are too kind. You could also say, as the name indicates, kind of a geek, especially when it comes to RC, or you might even say full-up nerd. My wife would probably agree with you there. But to the extent that almost 2 years ago, I started a website and YouTube channel called the RC Geek with the intention to provide tutorials and just general information for people to learn how to build, how to do traditional building. We've got a generation that has never experienced traditional building really at all. And so I'm trying to provide information, quality information and tutorials on how to do that because it's such an amazing thing of our hobby that seems to be slowly going away as generations come into the hobby. So, truth be told, when AMA asked me to be a presenter, I was humbled by the opportunity. I really struggled. I was like, man, what am I even going to talk about? But they just said, hey, why don't we just talk about what you're doing, what you're up to. So that's what we're going to go through here. And the truth of the matter is, this show, I've been coming to this show quite literally since I was a kid. My dad is Larry Wolf from Jet Hangar Hobbies. He was a pioneer in RC jets back in the day, doing just amazing, amazing things. And so I got to grow up in the back of my dad's shop, watching what they were doing. And so, to the extent, even 15 years ago, I actually met my wife at this show, if you can believe that. So you single guys out there, there's hope. You can meet your soulmate here. It's not the most likely event to occur, but it does happen. So in terms of my modeling background, to give you a little background about myself, scale modeling is my passion. I love it. I grew up, again, in my dad's hobby shop. They were doing incredible things. And so for me, I grew up, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. That's what I was going to do. There was no question about that. And I'm sure many of you probably have a similar story. But in terms of scale, you could say it's in my blood because my dad is one of the most amazing scale modelers in the world, quite frankly. And so some of my fondest memories I have growing up are in the back of the shop, just being one of the guys. As a kid, it was pretty awesome. Now, I didn't appreciate it, of course, at the time because I was a kid. I was like, oh, man, I got to go back to the shop. But when I look back on it now, it was so many fond memories to be able to grow up in that environment. And for me, I don't actually remember a point where I actually started building scale models. My parents tell me I built my first plastic model at the age of 3. This is not the first model that I built, by the way, but I don't actually remember starting. I just remember always building models. So I started with plastic models, of course, like a lot of us do. And then at the age of 11, got into RC. My dad handed me a transmitter on Christmas Day and said, hey, here, go fly. And that's kind of what happened. It was kind of weird. And so I got hooked on that at 11, just started flying. And then at the age of 15, I received a Royal Zero kit for Christmas. And at the age of 18, I competed with that model, which is the one pictured here, at my first Scale Masters qualifier. If any of you guys have built a Royal kit, you know why it was 3 years in the making, because it was pretty much a forest in a box. Like, it was so much carving, but incredible kits. And so, and that was really the start. And I haven't stopped since. All through college, I kept flying. And then when I started working as an engineer, I really got into jets really heavily, and that's really where my passion has stayed, with the jets. And so, early 2000s, I helped design an F-14 kit for my parents. I did a few other kits for them, continually helping in the design aspect. Got into turbines, was doing turbines, flying for a while. all the while still doing competition. And then this last year, competed at the U.S. Scale Masters Championships, Woodland Davis, with this airplane here, and ended up somehow on top. And it was just an amazing experience, an amazing event. And so, in terms of the airplane itself, it's a Mirage 3 RS that, so this kit, what this started from, this design was the very first kit that my dad released back in 1978. And so to be able to go to that competition in 2016 with that design and win the whole thing, and somehow it was really such an honor for me to be able to represent his accomplishments, all of the amazing things that he's done throughout his model aviation career. He does have, and so I was really honored and blessed by that. And so in terms of the model itself, it's actually an electric powered jet. I've gotten really big into electric jets, trying to push the limits in scale. How far can we go and still get a competition-worthy airplane with all of the scale details and features? And so this was actually the first electric jet to win the event. So there's not very many electrics actually that you see at the Scale Masters in general. Now, growing up, the mentality was if you wanted it, you wanted to fly it, you had to build it. And I've always kind of maintained that mentality and held that with me. And that's really how I approach most of my projects. And observing what my dad would do with his designs just blew my mind. So much ingenuity back in the 80s, the things that they were doing with such limited technology, it was just incredible. And so growing up in the environment that I did, I had the opportunity to learn so much from just one of the best. And the truth is, you know, as I mentioned, I've always carried that mentality. If you want it, you got to build it. And so, in terms of my education, as I mentioned, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and I'm standing here before you now as an aerospace engineer, so obviously that didn't happen. So what happened was, junior high, I couldn't see the board so well. And so I was told I had to get glasses. And at that point, okay, I don't meet the minimum eyesight requirement. So in that moment, I decided, well, if I can't fly fighters, I'll design them instead. And that's really what pushed me on the trajectory that I went. So in '96, I graduated from high school, went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, graduated in 2000 with an aerospace engineering degree, and amazing school, excellent education. And so all throughout my time there, kept flying. We actually had an RC field on campus, so it was awesome. We could walk from our dorms down to the field, go flying. It was great. And it's all aviation related school, so it kind of made sense that they had that there. But like I said, I kept flying, and actually, as a part of my studies, I did a directed study, an independent study with one of my professors to build an RC model of our senior design project. We designed a 4-place all-composite private airplane designed around a 300 horsepower radial engine, which is why it's got kind of this round anteater-looking nose to it. But as I built that model, it flew awesome and was able to get, it was all part of my studies there. Model aviation was such a big part of what I was doing, and it really kind of inspired me to take the direction that I did in going into aerospace engineering. Now, currently, I lead a team of engineers doing performance and aerodynamic analysis, anything related to the aerodynamics of the airplanes. This includes aerodynamic analysis, aircraft performance analysis, wind tunnel testing, flight testing, all of this fun stuff. It's an incredible technology. We're continually pushing the limits with unmanned systems and just doing really cutting edge things. Very dynamic environment to work in. And we are hiring. Anyone out there want to go to San Diego? It's definitely could be worse places to be in the world, that's for sure. But I do wish that I could talk more in depth about what we do. But unfortunately, based on the sensitivity of the information, I really can't. But I will say that it's really fun stuff that we're doing, pushing the limits in terms of unmanned aircraft, and it's just an amazing technology, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So now when it comes to RC, as I mentioned, I'm from the old school. I really enjoy building, and I'm usually always building with competition in mind. And that's just kind of how I'm wired in that respect. I couldn't fly fighters, so I want to build airplanes as close to the real ones to, make jet noises on my bench to make it feel like I'm actually flying, But when we talk about like 2016, the decline in builders, right? There's not so many people that truly build anymore. And it's really unfortunate because it's such an amazing aspect of our hobby. To be able to make a creation and fly it is really just an amazing thing. And so when I talk to people about, hey, have you considered building a project or something like that? It's like, well, I don't really know how. And then the other one, of course, I hear is, well, I don't really have time. But the thing is, if you have the skill set to do the building, the time becomes less of an issue because you can do things quicker. And the truth of the matter is, if you attack something like this with the mindset that, look, a little at a time, and then eventually it's going to be done. It's not something that gets done overnight. There's just no way. But if you carry the mindset that tonight I'm just going to do a little bit, make a little progress, small baby steps. Eventually, in really a short amount of time, you can have something completely in primer and on its gear. So if we don't know how to do something, where do we go? The internet. Professor Google, hey, tell me how to build a model airplane. How do I fly an RC jet? All that stuff. And so when you look at the information that's out there on the internet, there's tons of information, yes, but trying to find really quality information about how to do this stuff, there really isn't any. I was really surprised by that. And so, of course, there's some really good forums out there, but the problem with the forums is there's such an expanse of comments that you have there. So you have to really weed through all these ancillary comments that don't really mean much to find the small few quality contributions in the forum. And so in 2015, with all of this in mind, I started up the rcgeek.com. And what it is, it's intended as a place to provide build tutorials and how-tos on building and finishing all different types of models. I'm a big jet head, so a lot of what I do does center around jets, but I love warbirds. I just love scale in general. But I do also dabble in cars and other things as well, because it's fun and I love a good car build once in a while. So my hope was to try and fill some of the void. If we go to the internet, to provide some searchable information, things that people can find fairly easily, as opposed to having to search heavily online and weed through all this extra stuff. So it's intended as a centralized location of articles and videos for all different types of building techniques, and it's presented in a way that's fun and still informative. At least that's my goal. That's what I try to do. Because there's a lot of really bad videos on the internet. So I take a lot of time in editing and trying to make sure that it's engaging, but still really informative. And again, I love building for competition, and so we do go down into the very nuts and bolts of scale detailing. We talked about how to do pitot tubes and things of that sort too. And I find that people really want to know how to do this stuff, and so it's been fairly well received, I would say, but it's really intended, it's more than that. It's intended as a community, a place to feature not just what I'm doing, but to feature things that you guys are doing too. I go to a number of events throughout the year, and I love to feature the things that I see at the events because there's some really amazing stuff that you guys are doing, and I geek out on it, hence the name, the RC Geek, right? So let's talk about a few samples. Here the website address, YouTube channel there. So a few samples. As I mentioned, I'm a big-time RC jet guy. So I've got a running series on how to build an RC jet. I'm putting together a Mark Frankel F4D Skyray, and I'm documenting the whole thing in video and articles to provide the tutorials on how to do what I'm doing. Also, I do reviews, flight reviews, all of that stuff. We had a discussion on how to make markings, how to repair fiberglass, all of that that I can, as I'm doing this stuff in the shop, trying to document. Also, we did a whole series on how to refinish a foam warbird. We took an FMS P51, stripped it all the way down, filled in the huge panel lines that really kill the looks of the whole thing, and then refinished the whole thing and made it not look like foam. It really looks like a glass model when it's done. And that's been an extremely popular series. And the thing about it is, foam is such a huge market right now, and there's so many really cool airplanes coming out in foam. So I see that kind of building, I'll say, as a stepping stone to something like this. A lot of those techniques that we do in refinishing these airplanes and kit bashing and that sort translate to what we're doing here. And so if we can inspire somebody to do that, then maybe we can inspire somebody to do more of a traditional build. Now, of course, sourcing kits is kind of a whole other problem these days, but there are a number of things that you can maybe find online and things like that. But the thing is, if we start building more, then maybe we can get more kits out there and things of that sort. So the current series that I have going, before we change slides, the intent, it's all about the exchange of quality information. That's what I'm trying to put across on how to do this stuff. And so the current series that I'm doing, and I have the airplane over in my booth over here, we're doing a series on foam kit bashing. And so what we've done, I've taken a Mirage 2000, it's also a foam airplane, and converted it into an Israeli Kafir. And as a part of that, we've incorporated not just refinishing, but more traditional build methods in shaping balsa wood, shaping foam, things of that sort. And so also incorporating 3D printing. 3D printing has opened up a whole world of opportunities in terms of scale, detailing, and things of that sort. And you can, to the extent you can 3D print an entire airplane. And I know guys that have done it. So I talk a lot about 3D printing, and I leverage that technology a lot because it's such, truth be told, 3D printing is very much a hobby in itself. You can definitely get into the depths of 3D printing, but it's such a great technology that's come online and opens up so many opportunities. But so whereas before the limitation was, well, can I craft it? Can I make it? Well, now it's just a matter of, well, can I draw it in CAD? And if I can, then there's no question that we can make it. We can print it. So the other thing I do, I mentioned it's part of a community. It's intended as a community. I go to a number of events throughout the year, and so I do event coverage from the events. And truthfully, I do a lot of videos because videos are very searchable because of YouTube, things of that sort. But my preferred medium is actually photography. I love photography, taking pictures. My wife complains that there's actually more pictures of airplanes than there are of our kids, which may be true, but I just love taking pictures a bunch, like action photography, aviation photography, and I geek out on the stuff at all of the events that I go to, and so I love to feature it on the website. And I know us as modelers, we definitely don't mind having our creations, having pictures taken of our creations or videos or anything like that. So now, the big question, why? Because now is as good a time as any to build. But seriously though, this was the best way that I knew how to give back. This hobby has inspired me so much, and it's provided so much for my family. I wanted to give back in some way. And so model aviation has just been such a huge influence in my life, and I continue to pursue model aviation in so many different ways. And so with my education and experience and the things that I've learned from my dad, as well as the things that I've learned on my own, I want to put the information out there. I want to share it and provide it for people, and hopefully, folks will appreciate it and learn something from it. And I'm continually trying to learn myself. There's so many different ways to attack the same problem, and so I'm always researching as well. The hobby, it's evolved so much since I was a kid. But we're in such an amazing time because of the technology that we have available. So my hope is that we can inspire newcomers as well as experienced modelers to try something new, try something different. Maybe we haven't done before. If you've never built a kit, think about building a kit. Or if you've never been to an event or anything like that, because that's how we're going to affect positive change. And it starts small, but if I can inspire one or two people to, if nothing else, maybe trick out an ARF a little bit more or something like that, then that's really what it's all about. And so I'm trying to provide the information on how to do that. And so I want to encourage you to get involved, because if we're not involved in the hobby, then we don't really have a hobby. There's find a club. There's so many, we in California, although you wouldn't guess based on the weather today, but we have such amazing weather. We have year-round flying weather. And so to get involved in the clubs, because without the clubs, we really don't have a hobby. We don't have a place to fly. And try out a competition. And so be willing to try something different. Don't be afraid to fail, because that's how we learn. And the truth of the matter is, in terms of building, there's very few things that can't be fixed. And so, be willing to help others get involved also. If you've got the experience, help some young kids get involved into the hobby. Expose them to some building, because if they're anything like my son, they'll love it. My son absolutely loves to build. And so expose them to that, because they may not even know that it's out there, that that's even a possibility. And then go to an event, because we're the future of the hobby, and it's only going to perpetuate if we can get young kids involved. And so we have to be active in it. So in terms of the clubs, these were a few that I could think of just off the top of my head as I was putting this together. But try out a Scale Masters competition. They're so much fun, and it's such a supportive community of pilots and builders, and they're all there to help you have a successful competition and enjoy the ride of going through the process. You don't have to have a fully tricked out model to compete and be competitive. Foamies are totally okay. There was multiple, there was a guy at the championships this year. He had an open frame model. Okay, and that was covered with, it was a Bearcat that he had completely scratch built and designed. But it was all open frame and covered with like a Mylar covering that he had painted. And it looked amazing, and he did really well with it. Okay, so don't feel intimidated whatsoever. And the Scale Squadron is another great resource, a network of really experienced traditional builders, always willing to help, always willing to be involved. And then, like I said, the local flying clubs, extremely important to be involved there, because if we don't have flying sites, then we don't have a hobby or a place to go. So that's really, really important. And so that's kind of all I had. I don't know if there were any questions on before we do that. So this is a picture. When I was putting this presentation together, I was doing like a really deep cut on pictures. I was going way back. Like those pictures of me with my model from college, I had to dig those up. And so I found this picture. This is my wife and I. She's my girlfriend at the time, from 2002 at this show. Her dad was exhibiting right next to my dad, and the rest was kind of history. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris.